thank you all for joining the Pulse of Quality 2026 webinar. We're going to be sharing findings from our Sembi Software Quality Pulse Report, a report that we initiated and completed late last year, wrote it, built it, launched it just a couple months ago. And we're really excited to share some of these insights from you. Just a quick introduction. We're going to be presenting today Judy Bossy, our Vice President of Product Management at Sembi, and myself, Christian Beatty, Vice President of Marketing at Sembi. Usually I say that marketing doesn't need to be involved in these things, but since we wrote it and I had a heavy hand in creating it, I'm gonna go ahead and take some of the airtime today. Quick overview of the agenda that we're going to be covering. So we're going to be going over some key findings from the report. We're going to be talking about what it means, the state of software quality in 2026. It's been an exciting past couple of years for software quality in general. And I think some of the insights we'll be sharing today will be very interesting. And as we look through the lens of what's happening in the future, there's a lot of conversation going to be happening about how AI is changing the QA and security testing landscape, automation, and then growing convergence of QA and security. And then we're going to end with some practical takeaways for modern teams. So just kind of set the stage. I think we all know, this is probably not a surprise to anyone on this call, that we are entering a new era in terms of software quality. Software engineering in general is dramatically different now than it was even a year ago. And it's continuing to change. AI is the biggest factor there. Development's moving faster. Code volume and complexity are rapidly increasing. And the QA, the quality teams, quality and security, are being asked to do much more than they ever have before. And really the questions that people are coming to grips with is, can we ship software faster? And do we have any confidence in our ability to do it with a high degree of quality? This report set out to kind of understand what are the dynamics that are facing the industry. If you want to download it, you can scan the QR code there for free. That'll come up again, and we can put it in the chat as well to download that. But the next slide, just a little bit more about this report. There's a lot of reports out there that focus on QA, focus on security, focus on different aspects, DevOps, DevSec, but there's not a whole lot of reports that we were able to find, or a lot of empirical evidence to show how is the overall quality operations landscape. Well, how is that changing in the face of all this turmoil? And so, because Sembi represents both QA and security brands, we are kind of in a unique position to be able to tackle a question like this. We gathered responses from 3,800 QA security, dev, and engineering leaders, small teams, large teams, hyperlocal, US, global teams, to teams that are primarily operating remotely overseas. And we asked a lot of questions. This was a huge survey. What you're going to be getting here today is only a glimpse of what's actually in the report. It's 84 pages for anyone who really wants to earn some credit and go through the whole thing. But we took a slice of those questions today and kind of put it together into a clear narrative, so you can kind of see some of the highlights of that. But basically, what we were able to achieve with this is a global quality operations insights report, the first of its kind, and hopefully the first of many more reports to come. Judy's going to take us into the first section here and kind of go through some of the overall trends, pulling out some of the highlights of the report. Go ahead, Judy.
All right, thanks, Christian. And before we dive into the results from this report, I really want to thank Christian Beatty and his team here for leading the effort behind this inaugural report. His vision turned this idea of an state of the industry report into a thought leadership piece that's driving meaningful conversations with their customers and partners like we are now. So this global trend section will set the stage for the deeper landscape context that will set the stage for QA and security findings later. What I'll share is that the combined quality landscape shows an industry that's under immense pressure, but an industry that's changing and adapting as well. What I'll do is share the results of this report and also layer in some stories of how our cross-functional teams here at Sembi are adapting to the changes demanded by AI development, and also tease out some roadmap themes for our product portfolio. So first, let's start with the big picture of what's happening across the industry. First, software quality is more complex than ever before, and that's because systems now are more distributed and integrated. So end-to-end validation is incredibly difficult. Meanwhile, the demand for release frequency is up, which leaves less room for late-stage rework. And meanwhile, responsibilities are expanding across QA, development, and security as quality becomes a shared discipline across functions. And lastly, the pressure is on. AI is transforming how code is being created, and this means that our validation phases really need to speed up. So the key message here is simple. Quality can no longer be a final checkpoint. It needs to be continuous and embedded across the SDLC. The first place where we see this type of pressure is release velocity. The data shows that many teams are releasing frequently, with 43% releasing weekly or more often. Yet at the same time, 37% prioritize speed over risk. And this creates a natural tension between velocity and confidence. In fact, 59% are only somewhat prepared or don't feel prepared at all for these emerging quality ops trends in 2026. And the issue here is not that speed is bad. It's that speed in combination with the right tools, visibility, automation, integration is incredibly difficult to move quickly without increasing risk. So regardless of what cadence your team operates with today, the main question that we hear across both engineering and executive leaders is always the same. How can we release faster while maintaining confidence? And this is why security, quality, and compliance are becoming bigger business priorities. The good news here is that the report shows that teams are prioritizing security, compliance, stability, far beyond cost control. And in fact, cost control is the lowest priority for more than 90% of teams. So this is a positive, major signal that quality is a shared business priority, not just a technical concern. And this makes a lot of sense because what happens when your business trust is eroded as a result of a security breach or a bug that prevents your customers from being able to check out your product? These scenarios negatively impact your business KPIs like revenue, growth, and profitability. And this also suggests that organizations are willing to invest in better quality when the value outcomes are clear. But even as quality and security become even more important, ownership over release risk often remains unclear. The report shows that no single function clearly owns release risk. In fact, the top answer to this question, who owns final release decisions, was shared. And this wasn't even an overwhelming answer at that, at only 19%. The other options like product, executive leadership, engineering, QA, and security fall very closely together. And this makes sense because release decisions are cross-functional. But when ownership is unclear, accountability can fall through the cracks. And so to solve this, teams need shared input, but they also need a clear decision framework. And at Sembi, our cross-functional teams work together to make risk decisions, but we have tools at our disposal, things like a RACI matrix and quality data to support the release decision process. And release risk ownership becomes so much clearer with things like shared dashboards, risk scorecards, quality gates, and a unified view of quality and security signals. So the transition is that things become more urgent when we're looking at how things are being influenced by AI. This is one of the most important findings of this report. In fact, 53% of code is now AI generated or AI assisted. I'm sure the audience here, like me, has also seen this type of statistic thrown out from different places, and it seems like a number that's noticeably increasing quarter by quarter as more and more companies mandate AI being used across different use cases. Just 5 years ago, AI for software development felt like a very far off and aspirational goal, but that's no longer the case. It's no longer experimental. It's becoming the expected norm. In fact, I am proud to share that all of our development teams here use AI to assist development practices, and its usage is spreading across all of the supporting functions, whether that's product, QA, DevOps, design, and it shows clear productivity opportunities, but it also raises some clear concerns. So teams now need to validate code they may not have written fully by hand. They need to maintain trust, traceability, and governance. And most importantly, QA and security teams need to be able to catch up with the pace of the increased speed and volume that we're seeing with AI generated code. So let's look first at what this means for QA. Sure, AI can help development move faster, but our report shows that these improvements in speed are not automatically reducing testing effort. In fact, 61% of teams report moderate to dramatic increases in testing demand due to AI generated code. So more code means more validation, more use cases, edge cases, more opportunities for bugs, and the pressure on teams that are already stretched is incredible. So the key takeaway here is not that QA teams need more tests. In fact, they need smarter prioritization. So you know you're testing the highest risk areas. This should be based on the most impacted tests based on what's actually changing in the code. And several of our upcoming roadmap innovations are designed specifically for this problem space. I am excited to share soon what we're working on, but stay tuned with exciting product announcements, especially for TestRail, X-Ray, and Testmo in the next few weeks. AI and QA should help teams understand what changed, what risk was introduced, and where testing efforts should be focused. And that, I think, is going to make the biggest difference in 2026 when it comes to quality ops practices and QA maturity. So let's see where QA maturity stands today. QA teams are prioritizing the right things. More automation means fewer production bugs and broader test coverage. In fact, 57% of tests on average are now automated. That's a meaningful step change from the industry norm from around 10 years ago, where I remember 10% of tests being automated was considered a win. However, only 26, a quarter of QA teams report that their automated tests are fully integrated into their DevOps pipelines. This is way too low considering the opportunities integrating has to improve the test feedback time back to developers, which can reduce bug resolution times even further. And automation is so valuable. So connecting your automated tests to build pipelines and CI/CD tools, and this becomes even more critical as we go into AI-assisted development tool chains that demand end-to-end cycles, automating the process, using AI from planning, implementation, verification, and deployment. And something that I am so incredibly proud of here at Sembi is that many of our development teams are now implementing tooling that's bleeding edge. What used to take teams weeks or months to develop and release are now just taking a few days. And the key to their delivery speed is, you guessed it, automation and integration into delivery pipelines, giving feedback to developers early and often so they can fix bugs when they're easier to fix, clear and simple. More to share on what we're cooking up in terms of roadmap soon. All right, so security automation is also progressing, but the integration gap remains a problem here too. 56% of security tests are automated on average. That's great. But only 9% of security teams report that these tests are actually integrated into their DevSecOps pipelines. That's even less than the integration that we saw with automated tests. This shows a huge gap when it comes to teams' abilities to shift left and find security vulnerabilities earlier in the SDLC. But why is it that so few teams integrate into their build pipelines? So one major reason that this report showed is overall signal quality and the reliability of results. Only 51% of reported detected security issues are actually considered true positives, meaning they're actual security issues. So when vulnerabilities from these security scans that you run have too many false positives, all the results just become noise. Developers lose trust in their security scan results, and remediation slows down. And even worse, real vulnerabilities get leaked into production because they're missed altogether. So security teams do not need more vulnerability reports. They simply need accurate, actionable signals that reach developers earlier. And luckily, there are solutions in the market that help with this exact problem. Sembi's Q1 has a wide breadth of supported languages, regardless of your application, including legacy applications like COBOL. And it includes a rich, comprehensive, and customizable set of rules so that you can reduce the false positives and have better accuracy in overall security results. So this accuracy is incredibly important for these types of integrations because when those tests are run too late, signals arrive too late, those issues are harder to find, fix, and cause real release bottlenecks. Speaking of bottlenecks, the report shows that 86% of organizations often suffer from security issues delaying releases. This is a common problem. I am sad to admit that this often causes bottlenecks on our front as well. And what this chart shows is that faster vulnerability remediation is often seen as the top improvement opportunity for security posture. And it makes sense. The faster you can fix security issues, the faster you can release. And one way to do this, as I mentioned, is to find those issues earlier through your CI build process and not as a final gate before release. Security has to become a part of the release readiness conversation, but also ingrained in how you plan and code and verify, a continuous and truly embedded process. So of course, none of this happens without the people doing the work. I will pass it over to Christian, and he will speak on what I find to be the most fascinating part of these types of reports, which is the people challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. These are some areas that I'm a little bit more qualified to talk to, so I appreciate you taking some of the technical stuff away. But I think what's interesting is the stat that Judy shared earlier about how AI is clearly increasing demand for teams. And we wanted to find out, how are teams responding? Does that mean that your teams are getting more staff? Or are we getting more resources? The data is actually very interesting. It shows that a lot of teams feel like they're understaffed. And when we asked, do you expect your team to grow over the next 12 months or not? It was largely offset. It was kind of flat. A third of the team saying they would probably shrink, a third of the team saying they would grow, and a third saying that they would probably be the same. So teams are being asked to do significantly more with the same resources they've had historically. And that's why this story of more automation, more integration is so important, because if you don't do those things, you're going to get underwater quickly. So these are very interesting, and I think this is kind of indicative of where things are going to be going in the future. There's another slide coming up that will also speak to that. The next slide goes into some detail about would improving the security and QA alignment be effective for teams? And the majority of people say yes, 68%, which was actually one of the more surprising stats. These are two functions that historically have been somewhat siloed from one another. It's been, the security team does their things, QA team does their things, and sometimes they meet in the middle. This is an area of opportunity that we believe is going to be very strong and help teams improve their their velocity and quality posture in the future without necessarily having to, increase resources or headcount dramatically. Just by creating alignment, um, it will improve the way in which teams work, execute, plan, and deliver software in the future. And there are a lot of reasons why teams are not just naturally able to do this today. The next slide kind of goes into a bit more detail on this. The biggest obstacles preventing teams from really aligning security and QA closer together are conflicting priorities, KPIs, siloed teams, which I've already mentioned. Security typically happens very late in the game, which means that it's very difficult to action on those things prior to release that they find. And the list goes on and on and on. The list is longer than I think most people have bandwidth or time to focus on today. But I think the lesson here is these are not insurmountable. These are things that can be solved. These are things that should be solved. And we believe if they are able to be solved, it'll make for a much better quality operations function in the future. The last slide, we were curious about, okay, if someone's getting some money in 2026, software is still selling, where is that investment going? This question is actually very interesting because when we asked this, I initially expected AI to just be the number one by a significant margin, and it is. But right behind it, QA automation, compliance, and security tooling are really high up on the list. And the way we asked this question, it's more about the function and less the people. You see, staffing is kind of the lagging one there at only 9.6%. So I think it's not surprising that AI is number one. I think it is nice to see that organizations are coming around to needing to focus more on quality operations, QA automation, compliance, and security than they have in past years. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue as teams, struggle to release their software at the pace at which they can build it. We're going to be moving into some of the takeaways, the big headlines, the things. If you just wanted to focus on these handful of things, what would that be? And we've kind of broken it down into sort of three summarized sort of findings. The first one is what QA teams should be focusing on. AI is not going anywhere. QA teams are going to need to reckon with that. And if you're already feeling behind in terms of how integrated and automated your QA testing processes are, it's going to become more of an issue in the next 12 months. And so our recommendation is go, fix the fundamentals. Go and make sure that everything that can be automated and integrated is. We all know that, in the future, the more connected our tools and systems and people are, the better off future AI capabilities that you layer on top are going to be. And so connecting QA tools more deeply into DevOps workflows and processes is the way forward. There are a lot of great AI capabilities out there. Sembi has released a bunch. It is, I think, surprising to see how, some teams are running towards the future and they are using those and embracing those, while others are still maybe a bit hesitant to capitalize and leverage those. I think the teams that are embracing the usage of those and making effective use of them are going to have much better time in terms of keeping up with the velocity in the future. And then just in general, I think there's, we've had a couple webinars in the past about just, again, basic how to build a smarter, more modern QA process and workflow. There's gaps that we all know exist. Now is the time to address those and to try to build a strong foundation to move forward in the AI-enabled SDLC future. On the security side, what the biggest takeaway that we found here when we were about a third of the report is focused on just security topics. And a big theme of that section was, if security could just get involved earlier, if more people in the process, developers and QA, could also be involved in some of the security best practices, cross training, enablement of earlier security vulnerability detection and awareness, there would be a much better result for the overall security posture for teams. So moving, shifting left in QA has always been a thing for a very long time. Shifting left in security has been more difficult, but it's an area of opportunity that a lot of teams were focusing on in their insights that they shared. Faster remediation of critical issues. I think in some recent research, I saw the average time to remediation is like 99 days, which is a really long time. And as Judy mentioned, half of all the signals are not even accurate or real to begin with, and so it creates this fatigue. Um, the mounting backlog of security issues never gets taken care of, and you're not even really sure what's real in there. So you have to focus on getting those cleaned up, and then integrating and automating. Same thing as on the QA side. Those are fundamental things that I think we could all be focused on. Reserve some cycles to address those concerns today, and it'll pay dividends in the future. Last one's more for leadership. What leaders should prioritize? This concept that Judy introduced of the shared, who owns the release risk, who's making the decision. We believe that a shared release ownership is actually probably the right way to go. And, you need to develop that mindset. Everyone should be thinking about quality. It shouldn't just be the QA person at the end of the chain saying, oh, I don't think we should go or not. It should be a shared release decision. There should be shared awareness about quality security throughout the entire process. And along with that, in order to achieve that, you're going to need to align QA security and development KPIs more strongly. Our big vision as Sembi is to create this connected quality ops infrastructure, process, way of doing things. And it's not just about the tools. It's about the people and the process that you use and the mindset that you adopt. Governance around AI adoption is probably one of the bigger blockers that we've seen in terms of AI adoption velocity. Again, trying to make sure that your teams are ready for the AI-enabled future, are able to leverage and capitalize on those AI features more effectively in order to catch up with demand. And then quality is now becoming a board level decision or board level conversation. It shouldn't just be treated as the afterthought of your engineering process. It should be the thing that is synonymous with your brand's reputation in the market, and it needs to be elevated in that way in order to get the amount of attention it needs for the future. Judy's going to take us home with the last couple slides. Thank you for that time, Judy.
All right. So, as Christian mentioned, the report shows that the path forward relies on this integrated quality ops. Quality ops brings together QA, security, and development workflows. It creates a shared visibility into quality and risk, and it supports continuous validation across the SDLC. This enables AI-ready governance as well as speed. Governance, meaning the right controls, compliance standards, but also confidence that you're testing the right things, you're not introducing bugs or security issues. And it makes it easier. The shared quality concept, shared quality ops practices makes it much easier, clearer to make release readiness decisions. And the goal, of course, is not just how can we release faster. The goal is always to release faster with confidence. So this integrated quality ops will connect how teams work together with speed, quality, security, and risk into one operating model. And to close with final takeaways from this report, AI is changing the volume and the speed and risk profile of software that we are operating. QA and security teams are under tremendous pressure. And while the automation is progressing, we still see a big gap in how early in the process it's run and how often it's run. We also see that release confidence requires accurate security signals, And teams need a unified model to collaborate, understand, using the same data for quality, risk, and overall delivery process. And that's where we see a glimpse into the future. Sembi Software Quality Pulse Report shows that quality can be integrated, continuous, and intelligence driven. So with that, let's open it up for questions.
Yeah, excellent. As I mentioned, this report is live. It's free. You can go download it right now. You can learn more about Sembi and our vision and what we're going to be doing in the future. I will hint there's some very exciting things to come in the next couple of quarters that we are working on underneath the hood. If you have questions, go ahead and jump them into the drop them into the Q&A section down below. We have about 8 questions so far. I'm going to go ahead and just cherry pick some of these. Nisanjay asks, where do you see AI having the biggest practical impact on QA in the next 12 to 24 months? Test generation, flaky test detection, or something else? I'm going to let you take that one, Judy.
I think that AI and QA is actually going to have the most impact when tests are not just used by testers. Tests are an incredibly rich set of product intent, and it should be shared with broader teams, whether that's development or security, so that we can inform better AI assisted development practices. I think that test generation, flaky test detection, of course, will help ensure that you have a rich set of tests that are created and maintained over time. But I think the more the data is actually used, meaning your actual tests, the more of an impact it will have across all of your teams.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think there are very specific use cases that AI is being applied today, and it is showing really effective results in terms of test case generation, test script generation. We have some capabilities coming out in the near future that will help prioritize testing. And so you do see incremental, improvements in quality, output, productivity, and effectiveness for each of those areas. But when you weave it together into a single sort of comprehensive AI-enabled process, you see a much better result, and it opens up the door for others to, be involved and collaborate more effectively when it's not just insulated to one team's particular responsibility. So great question there. Another question from Matt. Are you seeing companies bringing AI into security? And can this be part of CI/CD?
Yeah, I could take that question. Absolutely. We see a lot of our customers using AI tools alongside their security applications for things like faster vulnerability remediation. That's probably one of the most common use cases. And driving that into whether it's faster code remediation with bugs found locally or bugs found through the CI/CD and build process, the benefits are absolutely there. The goal is find the bugs and fix them. Bugs also including security vulnerabilities as early as possible.
Yeah, we think it's very interesting. Security and QA have a very similar job, and the output of what you produce in both those functions looks very similar, right? You have security vulnerabilities, you have bugs. The result is you need to get those to someone so they can fix them. And so I don't think, when you think about how you apply it, it's not dramatically different from how you would apply it in QA or dev for that instance. But I think the challenge has been security is somewhat isolated in the organization, and is not necessarily involved as closely as they could be. And so AI can definitely be applied there. How that information gets passed, used, and how we can collaborate together to solve those challenges is, I think, the bigger opportunity and bigger problem. Ricardo asked, following the increased workload for QA, how to use AI for testing purposes outside of just automation. I think we surveyed our audiences about a year and a half ago, and we said, what are the biggest use cases that you see where AI can be applied and leveraged in your day to day? And that just became our roadmap. Basically, we stack ranked them. We said, give us your top five, and that top five were the ones that we set out to go solve. I'm happy to report we're done with that list. And we are, working on some of those kind of more niche sort of like use cases, but test optimization, test case generation. You mentioned test automation, test script generation. How do you take your manual tests and translate them into automated tests? Prioritizing which tests you want to do next in order to improve your release confidence based on the time and resources you have. Judy, you want to add anything else to this?
Yeah, I think the opportunities to incorporate AI into testing are so broad. Of course, we're releasing a bunch of these AI-enabled features to help you, but whether it's AI doing the work or you doing the work manually as a human tester, the goals overall of creating the right tests, having the right test coverage over your requirements, keeping your tests well maintained, looking at your test results to understand what failed, why, how do we prevent this type of defect going forward. This continuous feedback loop is a traditional one that will persist over time. So yes, there's a ton of opportunities to incorporate AI, but I think this overall quality mindset and life cycle is still going to be similar as we go forward. One question was raised on what is your take on AI and manual QA workflow with everything? I know this is a broad question, but I will use this as an opportunity to say that one trending topic in quality is AI evaluation testing. So using AI to test AI. And there's a lot of tools out there like LangFuse, for example, or DeepChain. And these tools using AI test your AI. But what we're seeing is that LLMs are not the best testers to be able to confidently just trust the results as is and assume that all tests that pass AI evaluations are correct passes. And so one of the features that we recently released for TestRail is an AI evaluation test case template, which allows manual testers, humans like me, to review those AI eval results and really put your human stamp of approval on it. It allows a multi-dimensional quantitative scale on whether you think the test should pass or fail based on your predetermined set of variables, whether it's things like accuracy or tone or actionability. And you can even use this feature to bring in those automated results from AI evaluation tools for a full continuous cycle. But I think the human value of a tester remains the same. It's just how you adapt to these AI tools and AI pace that's going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah. I also think, our mindset when it comes to these AI capabilities and automation in general, there's human in the middle is a very important part of our AI feature development framework, I guess. And I don't think manual testing is going away anywhere. I think the type of tests that we're going to be expected to be manual in the future is going to be more specialized, but just due to the increased demand in software testing in general, because of the volume of code, it's not going anywhere. But I think there are a lot of tests that we all agree could be automated, should be automated, so that human intuition can be applied to the right types of testing.
Another question here. So question is, are there frameworks or best practices we should be looking at adopting or thinking about to ensure quality is getting the emphasis it needs? I already talked about AI evaluation templates and how human in the loop can help review those LLM generated results. There's another practice that's really hot right now, which is called spec-driven development, which means that as builders are generating AI-assisted code, you're using more contextual data to make sure that the generated product features align more closely with product intent. What is a great source of data for product intent? your actual test cases. And so this, again, is where I think it's so incredibly important for quality leaders to break down the silos, work alongside your engineering leaders, and really share where those tests are, how they're organized, how to reference them so that developers can refer. This is how the product is supposed to behave as they're generating new code for new features.
Excellent. We got about 5 minutes left, 8 more questions. So let's try to go a little bit of rapid fire. This one's a bit of a longer question, but essentially this person's asking if there's so much shared responsibility, how do you manage that? If everyone's involved, but no one's ultimately responsible, does the democratization of that process create conflicts? I know that we actually do this somewhat internally at Sembi. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you're able to manage that, Judy?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned having a clear RACI matrix so that we know who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed as part of these released decisions. But decisions are not made subjectively. Like, do we feel confident that we are ready to release? Those decisions are made by specific people using specific, clearly defined, predetermined data. And sometimes the baseline of how many bugs you're willing to accept before release might change as a result of urgency, as a result of customer pressure, as a result of cost and speed. But I think just having that predetermined decision matrix, having you know objective data, shared dashboards that you can point to support your decisions. Those are the things that have really worked well for us.
Yeah, I was gonna tackle it from the sort of technology side, enabling those decisions with clear, uh, clear real time, as close as possible, real time information about release readiness, and being able to interpret those signals in a way where it's sort of normalized so that everyone can see a very transparent picture of where we are, what needs to happen, and that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think that's why the integration story is so important. You need a single source of truth for release readiness in order to be effective in that sort of, uh, I guess, that sort of methodology that you described. Um, Here's an interesting question. Do you think that software quality will get better or worse in the next 12 months? We actually asked that question in the survey, and there is an answer in there.
Nice.
What's interesting is people tend to think that security and QA people are maybe a bit on the pessimistic side, but I actually think the results show that overall they're much more optimistic. 50% of the audience said that it's going to get better in the next 12 months. I think that there's probably going to be some pretty big newsworthy things happening of software quality issues making it into production, and some potentially damaging news headlines from that. But that's what it's going to take in order for teams to sort of come around to the idea that quality is a much more important topic in the future
Yeah.
than perhaps what it is
You're
now.
exactly right. The classic glass half full or half empty question. But oftentimes these balance how a company sees the acceptable amount of risk and speed is often a pendulum swing that, you might be under tremendous faster pressure to release faster, but then something bad happens, a customer issue happens, and you swing the pendulum on the far other side where you're prioritizing confidence, risk, quality a lot more than speed. And I think the important thing for leaders, especially as they're managing the right balance for their organization and application, is having access to the right data so that you are making informed decisions. How many tests are passing? How many tests are failing? How is this trending over time? Was the number of bugs or the types of bugs? Are there patterns there that we can point to improvements? So I can share that from the question is QA getting better or worse? At Sembi, we are getting better at testing. I feel very optimistic about the outlook of quality. And, on one hand, development is moving so quickly and testers are under a lot of pressure to improve their processes. But what I often see as a quick band-aid solution when we can't get testing improvements, efficiencies is let's just get more testers. Let's generate more tests. Let's add more pedal to the metal so that we can support the speed. And that's certainly what I'm seeing here at our company.
Yeah. There's one more question. I'm gonna use it as a segue into the kind of closing speech. The Amruta is asking, can you explain which tools or skills related to AI we should learn for effective testing? We actually answer questions like that for QA and security in the report. If you're interested in a very specific list of the types of testing the teams are doing, the tools that they're using, the challenges or priorities that they're focusing on, broken down by security, QA teams, if you're focused on one or the other. It's a really comprehensive report. Like I said, it's the first of its kind, and we went through a lot of great detail on each function. So I'd highly recommend you download that. I think when we look at the overall makeup of what the future of software quality looks like in the next 12 months, optimistic. There are real challenges ahead, and challenges that are solvable, but we need to be making sure that those solving those challenges is prioritized now. And if you fix those big challenges today, you'll be better off in the future. AI is not going anywhere. It's going to increase the demand and complexity for everything that we do and focus on every day. And so you got to do the hard work now in order to be kind of better set up for the future. That's all I got. There's a few more questions that we weren't able to get to, but I wanted to say thank you for everyone who stuck around. We still have 74 participants. I think I saw it over clocking in a little bit over 100 earlier. Like I said, everyone's going to get a recording of this webinar. You can download the report for free. We hope it's useful. We've heard some people using it in their conversations internally about why they're trying to, how they're solving their own problems internally. Thank you, Judy, for co-hosting with me today, and I really appreciate you diving in with us. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, everybody.